Hi, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about duration today in our music theory fundamentals lesson number 4. So in the same way that we talked about pitch in our last lesson, we're going to talk about duration. So we need a way to notate or to show how long we want a certain note to last. And so the way that we do that is by these durational values. And so here we have the double brev, and this is notated with an open note head and 2 lines on either side of the note head. I'm going to kind of go through the names here and then talk a little bit more about it. So this is what a whole note looks like, which is just an empty note head. Then we have a half note. So this is an empty note head with a stem. Quarter note, filled in note head with the stem. Eighth note with a filled in note head, a stem, and 1 flag. 16th note has 2 flags. 32nd note has 3 flags. And the 64th note has 4 flags. Hopefully you're seeing a pattern here in that a 32nd note is twice the length of a 64th note. A 16th note is twice the length of a 32nd note. An 8th note is twice the length of a 16th note. A quarter note is twice the length of an 8th note, and so on and so forth. So a double brev is twice the length of a whole note. So sometimes people get this concept of duration mixed up with speed or how fast the music is going. And that's not the case. We can completely separate this notational system we have for duration from the actual tempo of the music. That is to say that I can write a piece of music all in 64th notes and have the tempo be very, very slow. In fact, some Beethoven pieces are like that, as kind of a style of writing the music like that. And so I don't want you to be confused about how fast these notes are or their tempo. We're talking about duration and relative duration. How long is one note relative to the next note? So from our previous tutorial, we talked about pitch, and we were talking about the relative relation between the pitches. What is one higher, is one lower than the other, and so on and so forth. And so here is the kind of similar concept. This is a relational scale of durations, and it's talking about how the notes relate to each other. And so these are how the notes are notated. Well, with each corresponding note, there's also a rest, which means there should no notes be played during a rest. And so here we start with the 64th rest, which has 4 flags, which is the same, or 4 little things here, which is the same as the 64th note. The 32nd has 3, the 16th rest has 2, and 8th rest has 1, and then we move into the quarter rest, which is this shape here, the half rest, and the whole rest. And these are somewhat similar, and a good trick to remembering is that a half rest looks like a hat. It sits on the middle line and it looks like a hat, okay? And a whole rest sits on the line above the middle line and it looks like a hole in the ground. So we have the whole rest, which looks like a hole, and the half rest, which looks like a hat. So there's a little mnemonic to help you. And then this is what the double brev rest looks like. Okay, so let's look at this example here. So here I have 4 quarter notes. Okay, now in relation to playing this little melodic fragment, right? Now in relation to the quarter note, if you recall from over here, the 8th note is twice as the quarter note is twice as long as the 8th note. Okay, so here you can see that notated out. Here's a lower voice and an upper voice. In the upper voice we have the quarter notes, and the lower voice we have the eighth notes. And you can see just visually that 2 eighth notes take the time that of 1 quarter note. Okay? And so let's play this, and you'll hear I've got a violin sound on this, and you'll hear the quarter notes, and then listen to see if you can see the eighth notes below. And the eighth notes will be moving twice as fast as the quarter notes. All right, let's give this a shot. Okay, so hopefully you could hear that. I'll play that one more time. Again, when the eighth notes come in, they'll be moving twice as fast as the 16th note. Okay, good. So we could have done that same example with half notes and quarter notes. 2 quarter notes would take the time of 1 half note. 2 half notes would take the time of a whole note, and so on and so forth. So that's the concept there of the relational duration scale in music. Now I want to talk a little bit about dots and ties. So if you remember from our first lesson, we talked about a tie. And when there's a tie here connecting 2 notes on the same line, that means that this note plays all the way through this note, and then we have a change. Okay? Well, a dot is just a shorthand way of notating this. And it basically means take half of the note value and add that to itself. So half the duration of a half note is a quarter note. And so we take a quarter note and we add it to the half note. Okay, so a dot means it's a shorthand for writing a tie, and it means take half of the value of the note and add it to that note. Okay, so I've got another example here with quarter notes and eighth notes. So here's a dotted quarter note. Now half of the value of a quarter note is an eighth note. And so what we do here is we take this dotted quarter note means the exact same thing as this tied quarter note into the eighth note. So take half of the value of a quarter note, which is an eighth note, add it to itself, and that's the duration of this note. These two things are exactly equal, just like over here. Okay, so I'm going to play this, and there's a measure of rest in between. And as you hear the violin, you'll see that they change together. You're not going to hear. You're going to hear these 2 lines of music change at the same time. And the same with this. Okay, so let's give this a listen. Okay, here's the next part. Okay, so hopefully that was clear. Clear as mud, maybe. So one other thing, if you live in Britain, they have a different way of naming the notes. And with all my years of schooling, I never took the time to quite figure it out, but there's quavers and semi-quavers and semi-hemi-demi-quavers and all this kind of thing. I'm sure it's something that you could Google or look up on Wikipedia if you're interested, or if you live in Britain. But in the States here, we call them half notes, whole notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, so on and so forth. All right, thanks for tuning in.